it's Thomasina. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, thanks for tuning in. Last week I made a video ranting and raving about why you should move to New York City right now. But I also promised you guys that I would try to be as open and honest as possible about my experience living in New York. So I wanted to make a video about things I wish I had known before moving back to New York. Prepare yourself. Prepare yourself for the crazy.
'Cause I'm not just a pretty girl, I'm more than just a picture. I'm a daughter and a sister. Sometimes it's hard for me to show that I'm more than just a rumor or a song on your computer. There's more to me than people know.
The first thing I wish I had known, and I guess attempted to prepare myself for, was the fact that New York is such a lonely place. I moved to New York City by myself, completely solo dolo, and had zero friends up here, and so yeah, I was a loner. It has been really tough finding friends in the middle of a pandemic. You know, dating, I made a video on how dating is in the city as well. So yeah, it can be very, very lonely, and it can become depressing. If you guys are planning on moving up here, I really want you to prepare yourselves for this, because I think this has been like one of my biggest struggles. Now, there are ways to navigate your loneliness, but before moving to New York, I would suggest you adapt things into your daily routine that kind of help boost your mental health. So like journaling, you can take up yoga, meditation. These kinds of things will help you to really hone in on your individuality and kind of give you some comfort in spending time alone, because you're gonna spend a lot of time alone up here. The next thing you should know is that yes, obviously New York is expensive, but you can definitely make it work. Before I moved up here, people were telling me things to kind of make me change my mind about moving up here by myself. People on YouTube were like, oh my god, New York is so expensive, like don't move here, blah blah blah. So people are gonna say a lot of things to prevent you from moving to New York, but I will say, yes, the cost of living in New York is expensive, but depending on your lifestyle, you can make it work. There are certain lifestyle changes you can make and adapt to make it less expensive and still live a comfortable lifestyle. So a lot of people, obviously, when they move up here, they get roommates to make housing expenses cheaper. New York is all about the hustle, so people are going to say things to try to stop you from moving up here, to try to scare you from moving up here. And one of the main things that they always say is that,
Wow, New York is so expensive, like you'll never be able to afford it. You're not gonna last, you're gonna end up moving back home, blah blah blah.
but it's possible, guys. It is possible. Coinciding with that, I wish I had known about all the ways to finesse in New York before I moved to New York. So I've been here for like a year, and I'm just now learning about a lot of the opportunities to live a more cost-effective life in New York City. So for example, they have different like food pantries and refrigerators are stationed around the city where people in the community, people in the neighborhood can go and pick up groceries for free if they need it. I definitely would have been utilizing that more often had I known that these were available. There's also an app I just learned about called Too Good To Go. Basically how it works is, you know how a lot of these restaurants have a ton of food at the end of the day that they usually just throw out. So basically this app allows restaurants to offer packages of food, like these surprise packages of food for users of the app to come pick up at a lower price. So say for instance, Applebee's is signed up on the app, and at the end of the night they've got like ribs left over, macaroni and cheese, salads, blah blah blah. They would put all that in a bag and then sell it for like $5 a bag, $3 a bag. And you as a user of the app can sign up and say, oh, I'm gonna come pick up a bag at this time. Granted, you don't know what's inside the bag, but most likely it's going to be good food. You fingers crossed that it's good food. But I think it's a really, really cool way to just, you know, pick up a quick breakfast, pick up a quick dinner if you don't feel like cooking. And so there are just little financial hacks like that that are available around the city that I wish I had known about when I first moved up here. But now I'm learning about these things, and I'm definitely going to start taking more advantage of it. Another thing you should know before moving to New York is that the winters can be pretty harsh up here. I'm literally outside risking hypothermia for Instagram content. First winter 2019 when I moved up here, it was very, very mild. I think it snowed like one time and it wasn't even like an inch of snow. But I just experienced my first New York blizzard here like as a resident, and you guys, I literally did not leave my apartment for like a whole week, it felt like. You really want to invest in a good coat. When I first moved up here, I had like this cheap coat from Burlington that like was good enough for North Carolina winters, but it definitely was not getting the job done for New York winters. So I invested in like a coat when I moved up here, and it is like perfect, like no cold gets through it. So I would definitely say invest in a good old winter jacket and invest in some like snow boots, some snowshoes. I wish I had known the importance of headphones when I first moved up here. I had no headphones for like the first 3 months of living in New York, and when I tell you guys, my mental health was seriously disturbed. You have people yelling at you and at other people constantly. You have other people blasting their music, babies screaming, rats talking. It's just so chaotic and so noisy, cars honking all the time, and it gets overwhelming to constantly hear this. And so I knew I had to get headphones because I just could not take it anymore. So headphones are super important. I will say, obviously it can be like a safety concern if you're like blasting your music and something chaotic is happening around you. So I personally got like the Jabra Elite headphones because they have the hear through feature, so I could be listening to my music and still hear like a little bit of what's going on in my surroundings, so it's not as dangerous. But definitely you guys, for the sake of your mental health and for the sake of your happiness, invest in some headphones. And the headphones will definitely come in handy when you have people yelling at you all the time. So that's one thing I was not prepared for when I moved up here, is the constant, for the lack of a better term, harassment of people on the street asking you for money, asking you for food, just yelling at you for no reason. And I understand that the mental health issues in New York are severe, and there is a lack of support and aid for people who are suffering with mental health issues, and I understand that and I get that. On the other hand, it can be really difficult to see and hear stuff like that on a daily basis, and again, it can become really overwhelming. So just prepare yourself. You're gonna have people asking you for money all the time. You're gonna have people yelling at you and cursing you out for no reason. So just prepare yourself, take it with a grain of salt. Don't be out here fighting people just because somebody cursed at you one time. Like, it happens, and it's gonna happen quite often. Moving on. So when I moved up here, this was my first experience having a landlord. So I would just say, prepare yourself that landlords can either be a hit or miss. Thankfully, I've had fairly good experiences with my landlords. Every now and then you have to bug them just a little more than usual to get them to do what you want them to do, but really do your research on tenant laws and what landlords are mandated to do, just so that you're in the know and you're not going to be taken advantage of. But just know, landlords could be a hit or a miss. Fingers crossed that you get a hit. My mom would joke that sometimes they call landlords slumlords up here because they really can be. The coveted subway system. I think the subway system is pretty convenient. Very rarely do I take Ubers or Lyfts because they're just so expensive, and I don't drive up here, obviously. I would never drive up here. Let me just say that. Never. But prepare yourself for the spontaneity of chaos with the subway system. And by that I mean that at any given moment, on any given day, someone is liable to fall on the tracks, to attempt suicide by jumping in front of the train, to hold open the doors because they're upset someone called them this name, or they're upset that someone took their seat. Anything can happen at any given time on the subway. So when you are trying to make it to work or trying to make it to some place at a certain time, make sure you leave a little bit ahead of time to just give yourself that leeway just in case something were to happen. I wish I had known how pricey Ubers and Lyfts would be up here, because in North Carolina, you can take like a 30-minute ride and it'll be like, what, $10, $15, and that's nothing. Up here, you're going to be paying at least $30 or $40 to get to another borough, so sometimes upwards of $60. So yeah, I very rarely take Ubers or Lyfts. It's just super expensive, guys. bite the bullet and take the subway, save money. Again, you're trying to make living in New York as cost effective as possible. And lastly, let me warn you guys that I don't know if New York is necessarily the place where you're going to find love. There are a lot of movies and TV shows that glamorize and glorify finding love in New York City.
Well, aside from the space issue, why'd you move to New York?
To fall in love.
Said no one ever. Not to be the bearer of bad news or not to be like this Grinch of I hate love, but don't get your hopes up about finding love in the city. I'm not saying it's not possible. It's definitely possible. You know, there are so many dating apps. There are so many people on the dating apps. But I'm just saying, most people move to New York with a dream, with a goal in mind. They have this passion to fulfill this whatever level of success they're trying to obtain. And so a lot of people aren't in the mindset quite yet about finding love, finding a relationship. So they're not going to be as serious or as dedicated to maintaining a relationship. So I would say just focus on yourself, focus on your reasoning behind why you moved to New York in the first place. And if it is in your cards for you to find love here, then it will come to you. Don't stress yourself out on the dating apps because the dating apps definitely can be stressful. If you haven't checked out my part 1 and part 2 videos surrounding dating in New York City, definitely go check those out because I think those can be really helpful if you are wanting to date in New York City. Obviously there's no guarantee, but don't get your hopes up, guys. I know there's like a meme that goes around that's saying, girl, your husband is not in New York City, and honestly that might be true. Who knows? So yeah, those are 10 things I wish I had known before moving to New York, just to give myself a little bit more preparation than I already had. I think it would have been really nice to know these kinds of things. I think it would have made my move a little more smoother, a little easier, but you learn as you go, and I'm very thankful that I know these things now. And I hope that you guys found this video helpful. Hopefully it will make your transition a bit smoother as well. Good luck in life, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye!
'Cause I'm not just a pretty girl, I'm more than just a picture.